Hi, and welcome to this Data Protector demo. In today's episode, we're going to talk about a new and renovated Granular recovery extension. This is what GRE stands for. And this is a new version that we brought up with Data Protector 23.4, and it is kind of substituting the Granular recovery approach that we had before. The main reason for a new version of this is that VMware decided to not support any more local plugins. And since the previous integration was based on one of those plugins, we needed to walk away from that and we needed to come up with a new approach. The new approach, therefore, also supports Hyper-V now on top of VMware, and it gives you a common workflow for both hypervisor environments. And how you're using that and how it looks like, this is part of the upcoming demo, so stay tuned. So usually you would start at the dashboard level where you have all information available on what's going on in your environment. And to make sure that the virtual environment integration has been installed, you may want to look up for systems and check if everything is done in the right way. So I'm looking up my media server over here and check for properties and installed components, and you see Granular recovery extension and virtual environment integration being installed. So that's actually what I wanted. Now, when I move over to restore now, there is an overview of applications being hosted. You're looking at some MongoDB backups over here because they are based on a plugin architecture that has a unified agent underneath. And you want to move over to virtualization, which shows already existing kind of Granular recovery operation. Obviously, you have a number of overviews and filter option on the left-hand side. You may want to filter by certain mount proxies. This is basically where the backup is mounted to. Or you may want to select and filter by certain hypervisor type, the progress that it has at the moment, and many more things. So let's create a new Granular recovery operation, and you do that by clicking the Create Granular Recovery option on the upper right-hand side. So let's say we want to do that for VMware. So it starts with asking you for the source of this operation. So first of all, we need to select the virtualization host or the hypervisor manager, which is in our case a vCenter appliance. You need to make sure that you pick the right virtual machine to restore. So in our case, that's this particular machine, that's a Windows virtual machine. You may want to select one or more of those disks to be restored. So in this case, I want to restore some files from the second of the two disks. So we select that. And obviously, we want to check on the backup itself. So the point in time when the session was created. So let me use the latest and greatest information from here. So hitting next, you select the target, which is the mount proxy servers that you have in your environment. So in my case, I have a number of them, but I'm using the first one because that's my default recovery kind of manager in that sense. So we select that, go next, and we're getting a summary of things that moved on. If there is anything wrong in this overview, you hit the previous button and you go back and correct the mistake. If everything's all right in the summary, you click Finish, and then you see that there is a new operation being added to this overview, and we'll wait for a couple of seconds for this to finish. And that should actually be done in a couple of seconds. So now that system and that virtual machine disk is now mounted to my mount proxy. So let's move over there to see what happened. Now, when I look at the mount proxy and I refresh my screen over here, it is actually showing a new virtual disk being presented. So this is basically what you have directly coming in from your backup device. We haven't done a restore yet, right? So we took backups sitting on a backup device, and we presented that particular backup to this mount proxy. And by double-clicking here, I can actually move into that backup and the content of that virtual disk, and I can restore files from here, but just like dragging and dropping them to whatever location you need. So this is kind of the basic functionality that you have. If you need to search for something, you can do that in the upper right-hand corner. You can also use more sophisticated search with any additional third-party tools you may use for identifying files, folders, versions, whatever attribute of a file may have. So you can just use the existing technology over here. Now let's say we have found the files or the folders, and now everything is in order. We may want to go back and clean up the situation. So let's move back to our cell manager here, and let's unmount that disk and check and confirm that we actually want to unmount. Wait a couple of seconds, and the disk is gone. So that's basically the main approach on how you do a granular recovery restore. Like I said, it is exactly the same for Hyper-V than with VMware, and it gives administrators full control about the configuration and usage of individual file restore from virtual machines. So that concludes this particular webinar. Thank you so much, and have a great day.